Hello Riftanians, it's Rifthaven, here with another video. Today we're going to go over the elements. The basic things we're going to go over first. The first thing, when attacking an enemy of a certain element with the same element, the enemy is only going to take 10 to 20% damage of the attack. Example, a water slime being attacked by a water element. There are 8 basic elements: wind, water, earth, fire, ice, thunder, darkness, and light. There are more elements that are not the traditional 8. Physical, the melee element. No actual weaknesses, but it's pretty much based off of attack and defense. Ice enemies are 20% weak to physical attacks. Magical, the magic element. There are no actual weaknesses for this as well, it is just based off of the magical attack and defense. Water enemies are 20% more susceptible to magical attacks. Wind. These enemies are primarily found in Credalios. Weaknesses: 2 times damage from ice type moves. 2.5 times damage from thunder type moves. Wind enemy strengths are 20% less damage taken from physical attacks, and they're immune to earth types. Water, primarily found in Credalios, the oceans, and some of the Palean continent. Weaknesses: 20% more damage from magical attacks. 3 times damage from thunder. Strengths: 3 times damage to fire, 2 times damage to earth, 60% less damage from earth, and they are immune to fire. When I say strengths, I'm talking about when a move attacks one of these types, basically. And the less damage is when a type of water gets hit from earth, and water types are immune to fire, if that translates anything better. Earth, primarily in Credalios and the Picari Desert. The weaknesses: 2 times damage from water attacks, 3 times damage from ice attacks. Their strengths are they do 3 times more damage to thunder, 2 times more damage to fire, 60% less damage from fire attacks, and they are immune to thunder. Fire, primarily in Credalios, Pyresh, and the Demon Realm. Weaknesses: 2 times damage from earth. Demons are not weak to earth. 3 times damage from water. Strengths: Fire attacks deal 3 times damage to ice enemies. 20% less damage from physical attacks fire enemies take, and they are immune to ice. Ice, primarily in the Palean continent and the future Riftania Palean continent. Ice enemy weaknesses: they are 20% more susceptible to physical attacks, and they take 3 times damage from fire attacks. Their strengths: an ice move is 3 times more susceptible to an earth type, or they do 3 times more damage to an earth type. Ice enemies are 60% less damage from earth moves, and they are immune to wind. Thunder, primarily in the Picari Desert and Zalas. Weaknesses: they take 3 times more damage from earth, and their strengths, meaning thunder move strengths, 2.5 damage to wind and 3 times damage to water. The enemies take 60% less damage from wind, and they are immune to water. Darkness, primarily in pretty much everywhere. Weaknesses: 3 times damage from light, 2 times damage from Cursed Light. We're gonna get into Cursed Light later. Strengths, 3 times damage to light enemies. Most darkness enemies have 10 to 20% magical evasion, meaning they will completely evade any magical attack 10 to 20% of the time. And darkness enemies are immune to their own type of darkness, which is not traditional from the other ones. They just take less damage. Light, primarily found in the Elven Lands, Future Credalios, and New Game Plus. Weaknesses, 3 times damage from dark attacks, 1.75 damage, 1.75 times damage from Cursed Light. They're kind of... We're going to get into Cursed Light later, like I said, so I'll explain that later. Strength, 3 times damage to dark. So if Lucian uses a ball of light on a demon, it's going to do a lot of damage. Or if Zeke uses Blinding Slash on a demon, it's going to do a lot of damage. 80% resistant to light. So they're not completely immune to light, like darkness. And 20% resistant to magical attacks. The odd elements, there's a few more than the ones I've listed, but these are the main ones that are in the game that are like really ones that you'll find. Another unlisted one is magma, which is just fire and earth, pretty much. But these are the main 5 odd elements that I go over, and I made a book in-game that goes over all of these, by the way. So if you go to the Credalios College and speak to the nerd after obtaining the types chart from the other guy in the chair, you should obtain the types book, which will have all this information of all the types. Cursed Light, primarily in the Elven Lands and Future Credalios. The idea of Cursed Light is darkness and light morphed. Weaknesses of Cursed Light, so Cursed Light enemies will take 2.5 times damage from its own type, Cursed Light. Strengths, 50% resistant to dark damage, 50% resistant to light damage. Most enemies can cause a Cursed Flame debuff, which is a stronger burning debuff. This is exactly 10% damage per turn taken from Cursed Flames, if you wanted to know. Robotic, primarily found in future areas and Credalios. Drones, only drones in medieval Credalios. Idea, metallic enemies, but also with thunder defenses. Weaknesses, 3 times damage from fire, 2.5 times damage from earth. Strengths, they have a 10% physical damage reduction, a 60% resistance to wind. They are usually very hard-hitting, immune to water, and higher tier usually start with a barrier, and they have a Barrier Slayer passive, which means they do 40% damage to barriers, or 50% damage to barriers, I'm sorry. Parasitic, primarily in Future Riftania. To be more specific, I'm pretty sure they are only in the Palean continent in Future Riftania, and in the Deserted Labs is mainly where they are featured, which is the dungeon of Future Palean continent. Their weaknesses, they are 2.5 times more susceptible to fire. Their strengths, they have a 10% physical reduction, and they have a high chance to inflict poison, rage, and sap MP, which I think lowers MP per turn. Blight. This is the most gruesome enemy in the game, primarily in future areas. They're pretty much light enemies, but with a nasty debuff called Blight. Blight is a 20% negative evasion rate, minus 25 attack speed, which is just minus 25 agility, minus 10% TP per turn, max HP 90%, so you have 10% less max HP, lasts for 3 turns once inflicted. The only cure for blight is blight powder or getting through 3 turns of a fight. Sorry, my cat is constantly pushing stuff around on my desk right now. Weaknesses: 3 times damage from darkness, 1.75 times damage from cursed light. Strengths: 20% magical damage reduction, 80% less damage from light, just like the light enemies, but they have a 10% chance to inflict blight per hit, and I think abilities that they use also have a higher chance to inflict blight. You can also learn blight moves later in the game. And immune to the blight status effect, so blight won't do anything to them. The last, but not least, element is blood. Primarily in the future Riftania sewers and the Elven realm. And I think there's some blood in future Cordelios. Idea: basically dark enemies in resistances and weaknesses. Vampire class, 10% chance to inflict blood marked per hit. Blood marked. Once marked, all vampiric physical attacks lifesteal 50%. Now, I'm not sure if this is only physical attacks, so that's why I typed it, but magical attacks might apply. I'm not positive, I will have to check. Weaknesses: 2 times damage from light, 1.5 times damage from cursed light. Strengths: 15% chance to inflict bleed. This is only from the blood spider. 50% 50% lifesteal once enemy is blood marked. And they have a passive of 5% HP regeneration per turn. Well, that was all for today. I just wanted to go over in depth the elements of enemies and stuff. Basically, I did it a little confusing because the weaknesses or the strengths are kind of mixed in between like what a move does to that type of enemy and what their strength is in terms of like resistances. This is because the characters don't have resistances other than Zeke, I suppose, has 10% resistances to wind, water, earth, and fire. But yeah, the strengths of the type don't apply to the player because the players don't have elements. Alright, that was enough for today. I will think of another topic to talk about, and I will post a video when that happens. Thank you for tuning in. This is Rift Haven. Have a good day.